Hey guys, and welcome to my first What's for Dinner video. I figured I would make one of these videos because I really enjoy watching them, so I thought it would be fun to give it a try. So on Sunday, I made an oven-baked beef stew. Right here, I am just cutting up a sirloin roast into chunks. It said you could use stew meat, but I just decided to buy a roast and cut it myself. So I cut that into bite-sized pieces and put it into a sprayed 9x13 casserole dish. And then we're gonna season up the meat. The recipe only called for some paprika, so I am sprinkling some paprika on right here, but I also added some garlic powder and onion powder just because I like a lot of flavor. And then the only other thing we put on here was some French onion soup mix. I just got the generic kind from Walmart because that's where I got everything else. So I'm just sprinkling that on there, and then we're just gonna sit that aside. Here I am just chopping up some peeled potatoes. I did 3 potatoes. I can't remember how many the recipe called for, but I just did 3 because that's what looked right to me. And I sprinkle that on top of the meat, or just place it on top of there, however. And then I peeled some carrots, and I'm just giving them a rough chop, and I'm going to put those on top of the potatoes and the meat as well. Now here's where I changed the recipe a little bit. The original recipe called for 2 cans of cream of celery and a cup of ketchup, but that sounded too weird to me, so I just did a can of tomato sauce because I just was weirded out by the ketchup. So I put that in there, and then since the color I thought was going to be like weird because it's going to be pink, I just put pretty much this random like browning sauce in there. I got it for free at work. I think it's kind of comparable to Kitchen Bouquet, but just a different brand. And then we're just going to pour that all over the vegetables in the casserole dish and spread it out evenly. Now this went into a 300 degree, no, it might have been 325 degree oven. I could be wrong, but I'll link the recipe down below. But it went into the oven for about 2 hours, and this is what it looked like. So I just gave that a stir and just let it sit until it thickened up a little bit. And when it was time to eat, I just served this over some white rice that I cooked in my rice cooker, and it was actually really good. I think next time I would just make this in a crock pot just because I feel like the vegetables get a little more tender and I prefer them that way. But in all, this was a really good recipe, and I would definitely make it again. On Monday, I made some BBQ Bacon Cheeseburgers and some homemade potato chips. So here I'm just cutting some potatoes on my mandolin. I got this thing for like $10 at TJ Maxx a really long time ago. So I'm just slicing my potato thin on there, and then I'm just rinsing the potatoes a couple of times until the water runs clear to get all that extra starch off of them. And then I'm just going to cover them with water and add in some vinegar and some salt. I don't know really like the science of what this does, but I just think it makes the texture of the potato chips better. So I always do this, and I let it sit for at least 30 minutes, but these sat for about an hour. Next, I am seasoning up my burger patties. I'm just putting some of the Aldi version of like a Montreal steak seasoning on there and some salt and pepper. And I'm just cooking these on the griddle. I like that because I can put all the extra grease and stuff down in that little hole so the burgers aren't just floating around in grease when I'm trying to cook them. And then I'm also dropping some potatoes into some hot oil. I get it to about 350 degrees, and then I start frying the potato chips. You don't want to crowd your pan too much, but I always put more than I probably should in the pot, and it might take a little longer, but they always come out fine. So I think however you do it turns out fine. And here I am just cutting part of an onion. I'm going to make little fried onion straws to go in the burgers, and they're really good. So I'm just slicing it kind of thin and breaking it up. And then I'm just going to put some salt and pepper on there and a little bit of flour and give it a toss. And then we'll drop that into the oil after the potatoes are done. This is what your potatoes should look like when they are done. So I'm just putting those in a bowl and I'm just going to put a little salt on them and toss them around. And there's some bacon I had already cooked. So I just pulled that and was heating it up on the griddle and added my cheddar cheese to my burgers. And then this video's kind of all over the place, but here goes my onions into the hot oil. They only take about 35 seconds or so to fully cook, so you don't want to keep them in there too long. And now to assemble the burgers, I'm just putting some Kraft Original barbecue sauce, that's our favorite, on the bottom of the bun, and I'm going to spread that out, add my burger patty with the bacon on there, top it with the onion straws and more barbecue sauce, and I'm telling you, these are so freaking good. These burgers paired with these homemade chips, that was a definite winner in our house. We will make these many, many more times. They are so good. Those chips are so crispy. It was just a great dinner, and my husband devoured it. So definitely a recipe you would like to try. I don't have a link for this one because I just kind of made it up. But you can kind of tell everything I did, so you should give it a try. On Tuesday, we did breakfast for dinner, and it was pretty simple, so I don't have a whole lot of footage for this, but I'm just making some of that complete pancake mix. This is the Krusteaz kind, and that's our favorite, like the buttermilk pancake mix. So I don't ever measure the water, really. I just do whatever looks right until it's the consistency I want. And then here I'm just scrambling up some eggs with some salt and pepper. And I'm also getting some grits started. I just made like a cheddar cheese grits, and it was just simple and delicious. So there's that. And here I am melting some butter. I always like to cook my eggs in melted butter. But yeah, breakfast is pretty simple. The only other thing I didn't show is we had some maple sausage, but it was just the already cooked kind, and I just threw it on the griddle when I was making the pancakes. And this was dinner. And the only thing I put in the grits to make them like the cheese grits, I put shredded sharp cheddar and a big heaping spoonful of whipped cream cheese. So this was delicious. I don't think you can ever really go wrong with breakfast. On Wednesday, we had shepherd's pie. This is another recipe that I found on Pinterest, and I will leave it linked down below. But I'm just peeling potatoes, and I like to peel them on to like some saran wrap over my cutting board, and that way after I get them all peeled, all I have to do is gather up the saran wrap and I have a clean cutting board to chop my potatoes. So that's just a little trick. If you've never done that, it makes cleaning up all those peelings so much easier. So I'm just dicing some potatoes to make mashed potatoes. You can use instant mashed potatoes. I think the recipe actually called for instant mashed potatoes, but I just prefer my homemade potatoes over the instant. Now I am just grounding up some ground beef. I drained off the grease after I got it good and browned, and then we added some onion powder, some garlic powder, and then I added in a can of tomato soup, some frozen mixed vegetables, and a packet of beef stew seasoning. At this point, the meat mixture really is done after those vegetables are no longer frozen, but I'm really weird and I really don't like peas unless they're like really cooked and they taste like everything else. So I let that simmer for about 25 minutes, just stirring it occasionally. And here I'm making my mashed potatoes. In the pot over there, I have some butter and some garlic, and I just let that saute for a minute and then add the melted butter and garlic into my potatoes with some salt and pepper and then some milk, and just mix it up until it's the consistency that I like. I like my potatoes a little thicker, so that's what I'm doing here. Now it's time to assemble the shepherd's pie. So into a greased casserole dish, I'm just dumping all of that meat mixture and spreading it out, and then I'm topping it with my garlic mashed potatoes, and you just kind of spread those out until they're an even layer, fully covering that meat mixture. I actually got this recipe ready on Tuesday night, so then on Wednesday all I had to do was put it in the oven after work, so that works well, by the way. And then the last thing I topped it with is some grated sharp cheddar cheese. I just put a little bit. A lot of people like a lot of cheese on their shepherd's pie, but I'm weird and I don't like a whole lot of cheese on shepherd's pie. So this is what it looked like after it came out of the oven, and it would have looked prettier if I would have let it sit longer before I served it up, but we were hungry, so I just went ahead and threw it in a bowl. But we really like this, and I would definitely make it again. I brought some to my mom, and she really liked it too, so I say try it. On Thursday, we had chili for dinner, so I am just cutting up an onion, and I am going to brown that, or I'm going to brown my ground beef with the onion and a big scoop of garlic. This is ground sirloin, so I just found that at a good price, so that's what I'm using. I really don't know the difference, but whatever. It's some form of ground beef is fine. And I'm just browning that up. I'm actually getting this ready on Wednesday night, so on Thursday morning, all I have to do is take my crock pot insert and put it into my crock pot and turn it on. I do that a lot, especially with crock pot meals. It just saves so much time versus having to get up and get it ready before work. I just seasoned my meat with some onion powder, garlic powder, salt and pepper. You can really season it with whatever you guys like, just whatever your preference is. And now I'm putting everything in the crock pot. I drained my beef and I'm adding in a can of diced tomatoes, a can of chili beans, and then a whole can of tomato paste. And then I'm going to put a little bit of water in there, just about half of one of those cans full of water. And then this is my homemade chili seasoning. You can just use a couple packets of your favorite chili seasoning. I like a lot of flavor, as I've said before. So I used 5 tablespoons of my homemade mix. If I'm using packets, I normally use about 2 packets. And then I'm also putting some more garlic powder, onion powder, salt and pepper. And I'm going to give it a stir, and then it will just go in the crock pot all day the next day on low. And it'll be ready when we come home from work. I just served this up with some shredded sharp cheddar cheese and some saltines, and this is always a good meal. We like our chili really thick and really robust, I guess is the best word. So this is a really good chili in my opinion, so yeah. And on Friday, we just had one of these take and bake pizzas from Aldi. This is the mega meat one. This is our favorite. It's really good. I just cook it the way the box says and add a little bit of extra mozzarella. But that's going to close out our week of dinners. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps out the channel, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye, guys.